Hey there, Brad Walker here, your local Airdrie Realtor, here with your Airdrie real estate market update for November 2025. Now, as usual, we're going to start with the overall market numbers, and then we're going to break it down by each housing type, including how far each segment is from our peak prices that we saw and when we saw those peak prices for each section. And then we're going to go through some of the data for each price range here in the city. And if you stick around until the end, I've got one interesting stat that I noticed in our market this month that I want to go over with you as well. And as we go through, you're going to see this QR code down here in the bottom corner. If you want to receive a monthly report for your specific neighborhood, including the sale prices of the homes that sold around you, scan that code or click the link in the description, select what neighborhood here in the city you want that report for, and I'll get that sent to you right away, and it'll send to you every single month. So you're always going to have the up-to-date numbers for your neighborhood. All right, well, let's get right into our Airdrie market here. Overall in Airdrie, we had 250 new listings in October, 136 sales, and we had 535 active listings on the market to start November with. That means that we had sales stay fairly in line from September to October, which is pretty typical to see at this time of year. And we also saw new listings go down a bit, which is also pretty typical for this time of year. Now, that does give us a month's supply of 3.93 months, which technically puts us in an overall balanced market here in Airdrie, but right on the cusp of a buyer's market of 4 months supply. Now, last month we were over 4 months supply, but I wouldn't rush too soon to say the market is picking back up a bunch, because the stat that I go over at the end of this video shows how that month's supply can be skewed a little bit. Now let's take a look at the average days on market. Last month we had an average of 45 days on market, and this month that jumped all the way up to 56 days. Now keep in mind, this is an overall city average, so when we break down the housing types, you'll see how this better relates to the different styles of property. And lastly, let's look at the pricing. The benchmark price across all property types is now $520,400, which is down about 1.1% from October and down about 6% from our peak in June 2024. All right, well, that's the overall numbers. Now let's break things down by housing type, because each segment is always just behaving that little bit differently. We're going to start first, as always, with our detached homes. We had 78 sales in this segment in October and 139 new listings. This is basically the same sales number that we've had for the last 3 months, but the new listings is dropping off a bit as well now that we get closer to winter. And that left us with our active inventory at 304 homes for sale, bringing us to 3.9 months of supply. So after a couple months of being in that buyer's market range, we see detached homes move also into that technical balanced market territory again, though we did see a jump here in the average days on market as well, which is now up to 55 days on average. Now for the benchmark price here for detached homes, it's currently at $619,600, down about 1.2% from last month, and now down about 6% from the high we saw in June 2024. Now for a bit of context here, a detached home around that benchmark price of about $600,000 would be worth about $36,000 less today than it was last spring. And next up, we have our semi-detached homes or duplexes. We saw 7 sales last month with 26 new listings, which gave us an inventory of 52 semi-detached homes to start October with. And this gives us 7.43 months of supply, which definitely puts this segment into a buyer's market right now. Now, as for pricing, the benchmark price here is currently $486,300, which is also a 1.2% dip from October. And now we're sitting about 5% below the peak prices we saw in April of this year. Now again, for semi-detached homes, we saw a big jump in the average days on market, but this one is much bigger than the rest. Of those 7 properties that sold in October, the average days on market was 105 days. Now keep in mind, this is over just 7 properties, so it's a really small sample size to get that data. All right, well, now let's move on to row homes. We had 41 sales in October and 67 new listings last month, which is actually a pretty good jump in sales from September, and that brought down our inventory and month supply. So that gives us 145 active listings to start the month with and puts us at 3.24 months of supply. And right now, townhouses have a benchmark price of $374,600, which is down about 0.5% month over month and down about 5% from the peak townhouse prices we saw in September 2024. And lastly, let's take a look at our condos here in the city. We had 10 sales, 18 new listings, and 43 active listings at the start of November. That gives us 4.6 months supply, and with a benchmark price of $286,400. That's down 2.3% in just the last month. It's definitely going down quick here for the condos, and now down about 6% from the peak prices we saw in October 2024. All right, well, now let's take a look at the price ranges. We're going to look at these in the same way that we've done the last few months, and that's by looking at our month supply within each $100,000 range, which gives us a pretty good idea of the supply and demand within each of those ranges. So starting first with our 0 to 300 range, here we had 16 sales in October. We currently have 45 active listings. That gives us a month supply of 2.81 months. And now moving up to the 300 to 400 range, here we had 20 sales last month, and we currently have 59 active listings. That gives this range 2.9 months of supply. And if we keep going up to the 400 to 500 range, here we had 24 sales in October, and right now we have 68 active listings, which gives this range 2.83 months of supply. Now moving up from here onto the 500 to 600 range, we had 32 sales last month, and we right now have 133 active listings, giving us 4.6 months supply. And now moving up to the 600 to 700 range, here we had 34 sales last month, and we currently have 102 active listings, which gives us exactly 3 months of supply. Now let's look at the 700 to 800 range. Here we had 9 sales in September, and we currently have 54 active listings, giving this range 6 months supply, so definitely a good size jump up here. And now looking at the 800 to 900 range, we saw just 1 sale in October. We currently have 26 active listings. Now this technically gives us 26 months supply here, since there was only that 1 sale, so definitely hoping to see a few more of these sell this month, because that's a pretty wild month supply number here for this range this month. Now looking at the 900 to million range, we had 3 sales in October, and we currently have 9 active listings, which gives us 3 months supply, and that puts this range in a balanced market for the first time for quite a while. And lastly, let's take a look at the 1 million and up range here in Airdrie. Here we had 2 sales in October, and we currently have 18 active listings, which gives us 9 months supply in this over $1 million range. So this chart actually looks a bit better than last month, where we only had 2 price ranges left that were not in buyers markets, versus this month where we see 5 price ranges that are sitting in that balanced market territory. But now that you've seen that one, I wanted to show you this other chart at the end of this video here. Now this chart is showing our number of monthly sales here in 2025 in the blue, and the number of expired listings that came off the market without a sale in red. So this essentially represents every single listing that came off the market each month this year, whether they had a sale or not. Now you can see at the beginning of the year, about 2/3 of the listings coming off the market were due to getting a sale, and about 1/3 of the listings were expiring or being terminated and pulled off the market without a sale. And as the year has gone on, those lines have started to get a little bit closer to each other until October, where we saw them cross for the first time. This means that last month we saw more houses come off the market without a sale than with a sale. And this is where the month's supply can be a little bit of a skewed number. For example, this month we see a lot of areas on paper that looked like they moved slightly back into a balanced market, but when you factor in that half of these listings exited the market without a sale, you can really see that it's much more of a buyer's market than these stats even show. So right now, if you're thinking about making a purchase in our market, it may be a good time to do it this winter. Prices have come down quite a bit, interest rates are going down, and if you go on a variable rate mortgage, you'll likely be able to ride them down for a little bit more. And with our inventory starting to decrease into the winter, right now you have the most selection of properties available that we're likely going to see from now until next spring. And as we get into next spring, there's a reasonable chance that our inventory is lower and we see prices make a seasonal uptick in 2026. So if you're a buyer, now might be a good time to swoop in this late fall, early winter market and buy yourself a property at a good price with an interest rate that's still going down. Now, slightly different story for you sellers. Right now, if you're considering selling, I probably wouldn't unless you really do need to sell. The current conditions just aren't very favorable for sellers at this time. Now, if you do need to sell right now heading into the late fall and winter, you're gonna have to price fairly aggressively to attract the buyers to your listing over others in the area. Well, that about does it for our market update this month. Again, my name is Brad Walker, your local Airdrie Realtor. I hope you learned something about our market today, and we'll see you in the next video.